Hello and welcome back to Transform Lifestyle 2025, where I'm delighted to be joined by Paul Turner now, who is the Regional Director, MENA, for Tonic. Now, you and Fergus gave a fantastic presentation earlier about employer branding and sort of specifically the relationship between storytelling and data and how that can help create fantastic employer brands. So just following on in that theme, maybe you could tell me sort of what that balance looks like in practice when creating an employer brand.
So I suppose what I would say is that the research and insight part of it is a hugely important element to any project. Without those stepping stones, those building blocks, what you're going to do, what you're going to work out with is not going to be that authentic, it's not going to be right. So we spend a lot of time talking to senior stakeholders, employees, we'll talk to other third-party organisations who may have a view or an impact on an employer brand. But most of all, we have to talk to everybody throughout the organisation at every single level. And for us as well, senior level buy-in is absolutely critical. Without senior level buy-in, every employer brand project will undoubtedly fail, because the leaders need to be seen to have bought into the process and be an advocate for the entire process. I think once you have those building blocks in place, you have a bit of a feeling then in terms of where that company is. So it's that snapshot of a moment in time where we understand what people are thinking, what they're feeling, what they're saying to each other about that organisation. That then gives you the sort of foundation from whence you can create your strategy. From there, it's about that, what we talked about, the employee value proposition, which may be a line, a sentence, or a paragraph, and then that's underpinned with values or pillars, and then they lead into behaviours, because we need to ensure that employees understand what that word means in terms of their day-to-day behaviours. From there, there's a creative execution piece. So how do we articulate that message? What does it look like? What does it feel like? What does the language sound like? What's the photography style? What's the video style? And that then creates a employer brand playbook, if you like, which will have lots of different elements, different assets, everything from social media templates through to employment brochures, the careers website. It pervades everything. What happens after that is bringing it to life, and that's where you need your employees. You need to produce content. So for example, if you're designing a careers website, you need content to sit on that website. People need to go to the website and understand what it's like to work for that organisation, and making that content really personal, a testimonial-based type approach, is really the best way to go. You're featuring real people doing real things and saying real stuff about the organisation. And that's where your authenticity really stems from. Allowing your employees to tell their stories and tell them from a personal point of view. It's their story, it's what they feel, it's how they emotionally interact with the organisation that they work for. And if you get that right, then that then becomes the basis for your external messaging, and you can go to market telling those stories as well.
Absolutely, so that's the way to do it right. But tell me a little bit about some of the common mistakes brands make when trying to be emotionally engaging with their EVP messaging.
I think sometimes they can try too hard. They can create material which is obviously very staged and rehearsed and scripted. And people detect that really, really quickly. They detect when stuff isn't authentic, when it's not real, when it's being put on for the cameras. And organisations sometimes feature their best people. Actually, they need to feature more than their best people. They need to feature other people, because you need to feature people future employees can actually relate to. And they can see themselves within that organisation doing that job. If you're featuring people whose role is unattainable, or their level of polish is such, you're not going to react in the right way to that sort of content. So it's not trying too hard, it's being too cheesy, for want of a better phrase. And also, I think it's about, you have to get that balance right, and that you have to almost tell it, and it's a really cliche, but tell it what's not. People have to understand that not every organisation is perfect all the time. But what people need to understand is that organisations are trying really hard to make that employee experience the best it can be.
And I suppose following on from that, how do you create an employer brand that the employees kind of want to interact with rather than they feel like they have to interact with from sort of a top-down kind of view?
So that's absolutely, I mean, our tagline as an organisation is brands, we create brands that people want to work for. And it's about taking people on that journey during the development of that brand. So when we do workshops, when we do workshops with employees, what we'll do later on is involve them in the process further down the line. So we replay back to them what we have come out with in terms of a strategy or a line and get them to buy into it themselves. And if they're bought into the process throughout the process, they're more likely to believe in it and live it and do what we're asking them to do. And it's not a top-down thing, it really can't be. You have to see the leaders walking the walk, but they have to see their managers acting in the way that they need to act. They need to see their colleagues doing that as well. And as soon as you get everybody moving in the same general direction, then you're winning, I would say.
Absolutely. So, speaking of exciting journeys, tell me a little bit more about Tonic and sort of what's going on in your world right now and the exciting things that are coming up on the horizon.
So Tonic has been around for about 13 years. So Tom and Mark, who are the founders, are former colleagues of mine from a previous life. They've built a very good global business, working with clients all over the world. The Middle East has always been of interest to them, and I've been in the Middle East for over 10 years. I came over with another agency to set up their employer brand arm, if you like. But Tom and I, and Mark and I, have always kept in touch. And then when it became apparent that they wanted seriously to think about this region, that's when we had a conversation about how I helped them to develop the business here in the Middle East. So for us, it's a hugely exciting period. It's quite frustrating because the sales cycle is quite long and it's quite hard to get business. But I think we're getting the vibe that employer brand here in the region is something which is gaining traction, where it has been slow in the past. And I think over the last 10 years we've seen more traction and more acknowledgement of the worth of it. But as I said in our session earlier, it's how do we persuade senior leaders that this isn't a cost, it's not a nice to have, it actually drives bottom line profitability, which is what it does.
Absolutely. Well, look forward to seeing how you and Tonic get on in the Middle East over the coming years.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
Appreciate it. Thank you.